Hello and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Later, the show where sketch teachers and writers break down SNL sketches so we can learn about the structure that goes into writing sketch comedy. I'm your host, Marina Tempelsman, the writer of the upcoming book, Unusual Things, a guide to sketch comedy for writers, fans, and everyone else. And I'm joined by my amazing co-host and author of the Substack, My Comedy Fantasy, Madeline Baldanzi.
Hello!
Hello, Madeline. And with us today is a very special guest. She's written for The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, A Little Late with Lily Singh. Her humor has appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic, McSweeney's. Her stand-up album, We're All Dads Here, was featured by Vulture. And she'll be performing her new hour, Childless Freak, at Joe's Pub on April 28th. Please welcome Natasha Vaynblat. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here, Natasha. This is like such an absolute treat. They're some of the most wonderful people to be in the teacher's lounge with. So I'm delighted that we're all over here.
Right back at ya.
Oh my gosh, what a treat. So basically the reason we started the show is because, we always would tell sketch students to go see as many shows as they can because you learn from like watching and talking about other shows. And SNL is, while it's not a live show in a comedy theater, it is a show that people can have in common and talk about and learn from, and also tends to have the highs and lows of any classic sort of live sketch show. So it actually winds up being pretty ripe for discussion and learning from, even though obviously the budgets are different, the expectations are different as a massive cultural institution. But we'll be going through and just talking through each sketch as we go.
Yep. Great.
Awesome. Great. Are you like a regular SNL watcher? Not so regular?
I'm on and off. Yeah. So I would say not crazy regular, but I definitely watch it a few times a year. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And I find myself watching the Weekend Update more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because it's like, and it makes sense in a way too, because there's also like Weekend Update both has those, like obviously the Weekend Update jokes, but also is a place where the character sketches live as well. And you are one of the most talented character performers who I know. If you have not seen Natasha perform character sketches, you simply must go see all of her work. But yeah, anyway, let's go ahead and jump in to talk about. Actually, no, sorry. Before we talk to the sketches, let's do a quick temperature check on this episode.
Right.
So yeah, what general read, like before we get into the details of the episode, yeah, what jumped, Madeline, what were you thinking?
I think it was a good episode of SNL. I think more sketches veered towards good. I think the misses were instructive. It is like very depressing. There is not a Black woman in the cast.
Yeah.
But I loved Colman Domingo, and if I'm not thinking about how there's not enough diversity, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, how about you, Natasha?
Yeah, I too was like, I thought it had a lot of sketches that surprised me in a way that I was delighted by. And like some that were fine, but still structurally good. I really like Colman Domingo, but not as a sketch performer.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's really interesting.
He's an amazing actor. I would say I don't think sketch comes naturally to him in the same way.
I'm excited to talk about this because there were actually a few sketches. I actually thought he was a pretty delightful host. I found there were some sketches where he really shone and some where like I almost felt like the writing was sort of undercutting a lot of it. Like there were a lot of sketches here where I was like, this is so close to being truly, truly, truly excellent. But then it really fell short in some interesting ways that like was different for every sketch. And as Madeline said, extremely instructive, I found. So let's just dive into it. I'm really excited about this one. I will say what we found at these with these shows is that the cold open is, while we talk about it first, it's often sort of the least instructive to talk about in many ways because it is, it's kind of a different beast. It's sort of a grab bag of references. In this particular case, this was very much, I think, the same thing where it was sort of grab bag of references. The overall like setup of like, okay, now I'm about to call 3 separate people about current events thing really is sort of a very specific cold open of SNL kind of structure. That, it sort of is doing the thing that the SNL cold opens are supposed to do. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've talked about in many episodes, just kind of like not super impressed with the depth of the political commentary that we're seeing in these cold opens, to put it mildly.
This one was particularly grim because the jokes weren't even funny.
No.
Like usually I'm like, okay, the jokes were funny, but this they weren't. The Melania's bit had no joke. The Tiger Woods, I thought Keenan did a great job playing Tiger Woods because I'm just like, don't make fun of Tiger Woods for being sick, right? It's just not fun.
Yeah.
Why are we so excited to make fun of Tiger Woods? So I thought Keenan's impression was like, he was sort of like, I refuse to participate. So I really liked that, but it wasn't funny. And the Hegseth was maybe slightly more focused in terms of like, the character game being kid bro stuff, but still deeply unfunny. And I think them ending with Trump and Hegseth singing Limp Bizkit is like just so weak.
Yeah.
It's just weak and unfunny. It was a bad one even for them.
Agreed. Yeah. Natasha, how about you? What stood out to you in any direction about this one?
Yeah, I honestly, the fact that Ashley, is it Padilla, right? Ashley Padilla. The fact that I think James Austin Johnson pointed out that she plays each one of these like female characters who's about to be fired. I thought was kind of funny. I was like, oh, that is kind of a funny through line that she's always the one. So that stuck out to me. I mean, I think these are hard in that they have to it really is like a quick survey of the news. Truly, they can't dive deep in. So to be honest, I normally skip them.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair because
I watched it though for this. But I don't. I don't expect. I guess I'm like my expectations are not set high for that because I'm like I know what it's supposed to do, which is like catch everyone up on what's happened.
Yeah, I think that's it, and I think that's a great takeaway too. Like it's sort of a utility sketch in a way, right? Like that's sort of just what it is. And sometimes you have a show where, for any number of reasons, maybe it's a theme show, and you just kind of have something up top that is just meant to onboard people or whatever. And in this case, Saturday Night Live is not like themed about current events exactly, but it is sort of like a utility type of sketch. Yeah, for this one, I think that I agree. It was like just not. For something that was kind of as raw, it was sort of like casting as wide of a net. I feel like they really could have done some stronger joke writing in this one. But yeah, I think again with the cold opens, just not where
it's so hard too. And like Madeline pointed this out, but it's like every piece of news was so grim.
Yeah.
So it's like, like the war that we're in, then like Tiger Woods, like addiction, and then like Epstein stuff again, so it really is. It's like it's particularly I feel like tough in the cesspool that we're in at the moment.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's very true.
It should be easy. Make a point. At least they were toothier during update this week, but it actually kind of should be easier to make a point when you're a bit upset. Maybe we're too upset, but they don't seem any upset with the cold open. So
yeah, because I do think the weekend update was so strong.
Oh yeah, we can definitely talk about that too. Yeah. I think that in a way the Trump impression sort of like it's sort of like the tail wagging the dog a little bit, and I think that they're going into it more with like the impression forward and less with the like premise forward, and maybe that's part of where it runs into a little bit of trouble. But anyway, cold open, sort of a tough space to learn too much from, so let's just move on. There was the monologue. There wasn't the most kind of sketchy stuff going on in the monologue, so I'm inclined to sort of pass over it.
I do think when you come to my house, the vibes are spectacular is like a great specific game announcement.
Yes.
I don't think that like the monologue was necessarily like the place to fully capitalize on taking apart that idea and really heightening it, but I did like that game announcement, and I don't know, I think they did an okay job making the vibes
actually good. I guess they did, and they did sort of have a runner. Honestly, he's kind of a runner throughout the whole show of like Jeremy being belittled physically
because he's ugly, quote unquote. Like the game is unattractive man, which I'm like interesting.
He's pretty cute. Sorry, I said it.
I know he's well, of course we all love comedy boys, so to us we're like, wait, he's attractive, I think. I was gonna say I really loved the joke in the monologue about how he's like, you've seen me in everything, including iCarly. And I was like, oh, is that going to be the game that it's like he's going to do scenes from, things he's been in that you might not realize he was in, which is, like absolutely against type. Where I'm like, I would have loved that too. So if anything, I'm like, you kind of introduced two different games.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think so too. And I think that what's funny is they've done this sort of, I think the thing that bumped me a little bit about the vibes thing was just like they've done like a very similar thing with several of the hosts this season, which like where they've just like done like play the music, like settle it, and they've had like slightly different games for each of them, but yeah, I think it felt like a little less special maybe to me.
I would have rather seen someone play a character sketch of like the vibes at my house were spectacular.
Yeah, that's
totally.
Because it
was
bit,
cute.
It was
yes.
And
I'm always like, I kind of bristle at cute.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's totally fair. Well, then let's go on to the first sketch of the night, because this was a bank robbery witnessed by fashion students. I think this is a really teachable one. So let's like jump in. What were your guys?
So sorry. Before we like talk about the sketch part of it, I feel that I have to acknowledge that it was so strange that it was an FIT sketch, because FIT is right next to UCB.
Yes.
So we happened to constantly walk by this very same place with these very same type of people milling about. So I was like, oh, all three of us are weirdly like, yeah, we've seen this.
Yeah.
Whereas like the average American viewer would be like, what is this? I don't know what this is. Anyways, very teachable sketch, but I thought that was amusing.
Yeah. What jumped out to you guys about it in terms of like teachability? Because I think there's probably a few takeaways that we may have in common here, and then maybe some that are different for each of us. But yeah, what jumped out to you guys?
Well, first of all, this was like catnip for me, because I immediately was like, well, I'm on board. I love everything about this. They're in crazy outfits.
Yeah.
And the game is so clear right up top.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it just does such a good job of playing that pattern. Like reporter is the voice of reason. They will ask a legitimate question. We will get surprising ways that each one of these fashion students gets it wrong. And then we've got the sub game of the one student who actually cannot or like is actually giving real answers, and therefore she should no longer, or like, they keep ribbing her for not being ready for the fashion world. It's great.
That was a great sub game.
That was a really strong sub game. I really like that sub game. I think that for me, I think that this is a great example of a reveal that's working really well, because like as soon as we saw that tableau, you could hear the audience really laugh, because they're like, oh, this is right. Like, this is a really funny particular group of witnesses that will have a very specific point of view. Like, this is going to be a fun character game. I kind of wish that they had slightly varied up more beats. It felt like a little bit inactive to me in a way that I would have just loved to see like a little bit more variety among the beats. The sub game helped give it more texture and dynamic. But I do think there could have been just like a little more surprise. In this one. I don't know. That was my thought for this one. Madeline, how about you? What jumped out to you?
I think that's pretty picky. I thought this was a really great opener.
Okay.
I think maybe having Mikey walk across as the dean was trying to insert some movement into the sketch. And instead, maybe to like satisfy what Marina is feeling, there are man on the street tropes that you could have gone to, right? Of like somebody else walking past and saying something in the background that they could have reacted to in real time. Maybe like showing something that happened at the crime scene and having them point things out. I mean, there are ways you could have made that more active, but I thought it was pretty tight. And I liked the host playing a character straight off the bat.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really great. Yeah.
And I will say, I kind of already am taking back what I said, because I'm like, Colman Domingo was so good in this one. So it was like such a perfect
I walked away
for him.
feeling like, oh my gosh, he was amazing. But I think a lot of that is based off of this. And I think when he was playing the voice of reason characters a lot, he wasn't doing a good job.
Yes. Yeah. It really is, but kind of nice to be like, oh, well, then he's great at characters.
Yeah.
Always, which is so fun for the host to do characters. Yeah, I think the rhythm of I think structurally, as far as learning sketch, I'm like, this is one to study for rhythm. Absolutely. Where it's like you have the straight person will ask the question, and then all of the unusual characters will play the game. You'll have one that's a bit of a turn.
Yeah.
And I thought by the time we got to the photo of the like the toes, I was like, great. That's another perfect way to once again give information that isn't helpful.
Yeah. No, totally. I think that was a fun surprise. I really liked that at that point. I was like, I was excited by that.
James Austin Johnson having the bow was a good button.
Yeah, that really was. Yes, because we've talked about a question that's come up a couple of times from people is like, what makes a good button in a sketch, and like why, what are the different types of buttons? Because I think people often talk about it's really hard to like end a sketch in a way that feels satisfying. And I do think that was a really fun specific. I do think that the specifics were really solid in this. I think I just craved a little bit more variety. I think in part because the reveal was like so wildly strong to me, like just that cluster of people. I just love that tableau so much. And maybe I just like wanted a little bit more of something from like crazy hat situation. Like, I don't know. I just felt like there was something that was so like visually striking about it that I sort of was like hungering for more of that. But yeah, really solid specifics and a great clear, I think as you guys said, a great clear character too. Like this is a great example of a clear character, clear point of view, all the specifics plugged into that character's point of view. So really really solid in that regard. Awesome. Anything else to add about that one, or shall we move on to the next one? All right. Next one, we got this was the pre-tape. This was the Black Barbershop as therapy. Yeah. Let's talk about this one. So what jumped out to you guys about this? What were we thinking here?
There's something fun here, but I don't think they ever really played the premise of it out, and it just sort of devolved. Like, it never was clear to me that we were watching jokes about whatever was happening in this barbershop helping with divorced or like relationships with these white men, or how it was a mental health treatment. But like it kind of did, but it never really connected the dots. And I think it just ended up being either like making fun of these dudes for being there, or like white dudes like playing stereotypical like black actor bad trope. Like, I don't know. I actually feel really puzzled about this one. This one didn't come off to me at all.
Right. Because this one, like, because there's, the kind of like institution of like the Black Barbershop as like a thing, right? And I just feel like I feel like I feel like the way that mental health was coming into it just didn't quite plug into the base reality of like the Black Barbershop as an institution, as a thing. I feel like they were like a couple turns of the screw away from each other in a way that I was also having a bit of trouble like articulating.
Yeah, because like what would have happened if one of the divorced guys was Black? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what would that have done to it? And I think like the fact that I'm like, I don't know, it means like they weren't really sure what the joke was.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I think this is also an sort of an ad where it would have been helpful if it had been like only referred to as positive. Like we are supposed to teach like you want in the ad to only say like good things about the product. And I think if they had just like been more bought into being like this product is great, that might have helped it be a little bit more clear.
I think there kind of were two unusual things going on, and one is like the white guys at the Black Barbershop, and then the second piece of it was using the Black Barbershop as your mental health thing. And those they don't need to be mutually exclusive necessarily, but again, I think there was just maybe like a teeny bit more decision making and a little bit more alignment of those things that just didn't quite get ironed out, so it felt like a teeny bit mushier than I think it needed to, even though there were some really fun specifics and some really fun jokes in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add too, by the way, it's not lost, I think, on any of us. There were like three white women being like, well, this Black Barbershop sketch didn't really work for me. So that's there is that. But I think on that note too, where I was like, oh, but the advice that they're giving these men is kind of all over the place, and some of it is bad. And so it is confusing if it's like, if the game is, this is, and not even necessarily self-help, it seemed like it's specifically relationship help, right? Like help with your relationship with your partner. And I loved the one where I forget who said it, but one of the barbers was like, oh, I forget who they gave the advice to, but it's like, oh, you should just cheat. Like if you're like, which is so funny, but I'm like, oh, then is it like that? To me feels like its own game, where it's like the advice is all not necessarily, I guess, bad, or more clearly like the opposite of traditional relationship advice. I think maybe that would even be more helpful, but it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah. And maybe it didn't need to be a commercial parody in any way. Like it could have just been like white guys in black barbershop, right? Like
yeah, that's interesting. Because I do think where I run into trouble is like is a lot of like the commercial piece of it, and like what the, because because I think that like the juxtaposition of there's like the like specific energy within the barbershop is sort of meant to be at odds with the energy of like a therapeutic relationship, or like therapy, right? And I just think that the commercial element of it is sort of an additional thing that didn't quite plug those two into each other. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I feel like this one could just have maybe there's like one more structural rewrite or something in here,
or just like making a little bit of a clearer connection that like therapy in the Black community is like sometimes seen as a different thing. Like, right? Like maybe there was something there they could have drawn a parallel to, but it didn't feel like it was brave enough to like say anything really, and then it was just mushy. I wasn't offended by it in any way. I was just like, it doesn't make sense.
I think it just felt a little unspecific, and I think that there's something really fun and interesting here, and I really liked everything that was taking place in the barbershop. I thought was really fun and like and interesting, and like the characters were really like clear within the barbershop. But I think that like collectively something was getting lost when we were putting that second thing against the barbershop. I feel like, it's almost like we had a base reality, but without a thing to sort of like bounce off of it or something like that. I guess, I think. But yeah, that was my thought for that. Very curious to hear other people's thoughts on this too. But that was sort of those were my takeaways for this one. Shall we move on to the next one? This is the NASA sketch. This is really interesting. I thought that this one was one of several sketches that it seemed like the production element of it was like the primary fun to me. Like the idea of making it look like things were floating was like to me the most like kind of fun and interesting thing. And the specific like on paper game of it was like kind of a mess to me. And I just wish that I think that there's a very simple version of a script for this that would still allow you to have all of the fun that you want to have, like visually, that didn't do this basically. So yeah, anyway, that's my little entry point to it. But wow, what stood out to you guys for this one?
Yeah, I thought it was a little too broad for my taste. Yeah. Where I was like, okay, the game is like roughhousing boys in space without enough like surprising specifics. Like I was like, yeah, there's definitely going to be a wiener thing. There's going to be a snot thing, so it's like, and I also, for Colman, I was like, I don't know, for some reason, his character being like just kind of like this sweet. I haven't been following the Artemis 2 stuff. Was that one of the astronauts was like a really sweet, like, let's love each other, humanity's great sort of thing?
I am honestly not sure. I feel like there was an astronaut who gave like a meaningful speech, but I don't know exactly the details. And I feel like I read something about a Nutella thing floating across the screen. So I wonder if there's some.
Okay.
But I honestly don't.
Maybe I missed the seed of the reference.
I do think though that like there to me I think it was even broader as a game actually than that, where it was like person trying to give a speech that keeps getting interrupted. And I think there
Mhm.
was not a coherent enough point of view to the interruptions because there was the boys being naughty astronauts and then there was also the like sleeping other astronaut
Mhm.
and all of that just felt a little messy. Yeah, Madeline, what about you? What did you think this one?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a good example of like if you're wondering if your idea is a game or not, or just a premise, this is just a premise to
Yeah.
me. Like I don't think there was a game here. I was like, oh, boys being boy on this. Natasha, that's much better. You're
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, yeah, they kind of had that going. But for example, like a Pringles can floating isn't
Hey, that's
that
my Pringles.
funny,
Yeah, like
and then a Canadian flag joke isn't funnier than Pringles, right?
No.
Like, and I think that's like there's nothing to heighten here because the characters don't have a point of view. Also, we've all just seen Project Hail Mary, and 9 days is not long enough to warrant these guys getting bored. So I think the point of view they were trying to use was bored, and I
Right.
don't think that made any sense or was unusual enough. So,
that's a good
like, they
point too.
could have just given those characters like any kind of more unusual thing. Like, the toilet actually did break. I heard that news bit on the
Yeah.
actual Artemis 2. Like, guy who can't stop worrying about dealing with and being interested in the toilet breaking.
Yeah,
Perfect.
even
That you
that.
could have played, right? Like just something a little more
Yeah.
specific
The
that
more we
any
talk about
character
it,
was imagining.
I'm like, this feels like a cold open, honestly, because it really
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, I bet it's like I bet they were pulling all of these references that happened this week, and it was just like kind of a light touch, like, hey, remember everything that's associated with Artemis too. Where I'm like, that should go. That's your cold open then, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's too thin
Yeah.
to continue to be surprising.
I think that if a student brought this sketch in, I would say, like, either figure out, like, what is the either specific situation that keeps interrupting this person's speech, or what is the point of view of the characters who are, like, disrupting it, or, like, the point of view for, like, why something would keep getting disrupted. But then I would also say, like, if the fun of this is, like, because there were some really fun, like, production design things, like, when he spun
Mhm.
off Sarah, like, and she does like the little spinny thing when they like lifted the hat and it drops down. Like there was some really cool, like interesting, fun kind of practical effects. I think, and I would also say like there's maybe a version of this where what you do instead is have fun with like what is the version of the sketch that's just about putting like it's almost like a high wire act for production of like setting yourself up so that they have to do as many interesting things as possible.
Right.
It does also make me think a little bit about the Whitest Kids You Know sketch about the astronaut mess, which I'll put a link in the show notes because that is a very fun, very physical thing, which I don't think is what this sketch was going for. I think that the part that I responded to was kind of uh, an afterthought of a half-baked game. But I do think there is a way to make some really interesting choices for like staging for something like this that can kind of become the whole thing, basically. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about for this one? Cool. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay, let's talk about this one, the knowledge hour. All right. There's so much to say about this one. Yes. Who wants to go first?
I adored it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, finally something, or not, I shouldn't say finally because it happens all the time, but I feel like, yeah, I imagine all of us kind of have this same kind of, this felt like one that was clearly for like the writers and the weirdos, but
Yeah.
it's so specific, so weird, so funny. Yeah, and I love how crazy it got by the end with Andrew coming on for this proposal. Like by the end, I was like, yeah, you can do all of that because it's so silly, but also
Uh,
still very clear and playable.
yeah. I loved this one. It also broke my heart a little bit because I feel like there is like a truly epic, like legendary sketch in here that just
Mm.
was like a little bit short in some ways. Like, here are my notes for this one. My notes are there was like some really like gilding the lily when he's like, oh, like that's the kind of thing I like to do. Like, or thank you for the props team for indulging me. It's like I was like, oh, we already know we're seeing it. Like it's already fun to watch. There was that little hiccup where he like I didn't really care about where he like went to the books and set the clock. Who cares? That was totally fine. But I think to me there was just like a little bit of tweaking in the entry point here and like how we get to him to like everybody it hitting the pattern of like people it keeps turning out to be people. By the time we got to every time I want it to be a person, it's an object, and every time I want it to be an object, it's a person, I was like, oh, this is so delightful. But there was this little piece, I want to say like 3/4 of the way down probably the first page to like maybe most of the second page, where I just wanted it like a little bit more tidy, like a little bit more just like go, 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 like a little bit faster, smoother beats. It was almost maybe more of a directing thing, actually, as I'm talking about it, that I just felt like was missing because I loved this premise so much, and I thought that again, I just think there's like it's absolutely A+ thing, amazing sketch in here that just got a little bit stifled to me.
Remind me, what was he teaching? Like, what is the knowledge hour about? Like, did he ever get out like what it's about?
No, I don't think so. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
think
like,
he did.
that could have maybe helped, and or at least give it a little bit more. Like, if he is teaching about something, his obsession with objects keeps making him unable to teach it well, or to give wrong information, or to kind of mess it up. I'm like,
Right.
that maybe would have helped give it a little more.
Or even for him to, like, in a kind of satisfied way, like, derail the lesson he's trying to give because he's
Mhm.
so excited to put this thing down, and that's a person too, didn't see that coming, you know what I mean? Like, I think that this
Yeah.
is this is one where, like, you can really just have it was funny. I was talking to Luke about to my husband Luke about this, who also does sketch, and the way he put it was like, you just sort of need a little rocket fuel in this one, where like once we see what the fun is of like things keep turning out to be people, you kind of just want it to go, go, go until we hit the snag of like that vase isn't the person. Like, where did they go? And then we're exploring in this other way. So to me, this was like a pacing thing that sort of fell apart a little bit, but also a teeny bit of scripting here, I think, that could have been tidier. Yeah.
I think I find I grade on a curve if I feel like the idea is
Yeah,
fresh.
that's, I think, totally fair. Because again,
Yeah.
this one really delighted me. Like, quite, and another one that I thought he performed so well. I thought this was
Mhm.
performed so, so,
Yes.
so well too.
Yes.
What a great character. And the like, what if I told you if I really wanted this to go well is like such a beautiful way to turn the corner and hit this new beat in this sketch. I was just tickled by it. I loved that.
It really reminded me of Look Around You, which I feel like is a parody of like science shows, but it's not any science show in particular, but
Mhm.
it's so sure-footed about the pacing and the tone. And I think that Coleman Domingo like really delivered like, "What if I told you?"
Yeah.
Right? Like I think it's like kind of a parody of someone on a serious show going like, "What if I told you?" And they just needed to set that up better. It could have even been a different show unless it's like closer to a real show that the three of us don't happen to know, but I do think like just the beginning was like a slight parody problem. You can parody something like that small, just the phrase, "What if I told you?" But I would have just made it cleaner, but I think that's kind of the problem of SNL that you have to, like, make it PBS, you know? Like,
Yeah.
if you just
I
almost didn't have to open it on SNL, it would have just been cleaner up top.
You know what this is so maybe too specific, but what it reminded me of was the artist and art critic John Berger, I think. he had a British show called Ways of Seeing, and it fully was like, let's look at these art pieces, but how are we looking at them? And I'm like, it does feel like a one-to-one, just in that like character and POV, that now the more we talk about it, I'm like, is it based on that?
I actually wondered if it was based on, and I just had to quickly look it up because I couldn't remember the name of the show, the Beyond Belief show hosted by Jonathan Frakes. But that like, who's the tall, like there's like who's the tallest man you've ever seen? Have you ever been in a graveyard? There's like all these questions that like that like are all across these episodes. And then but I kind of wonder if that was maybe the base of it. But yeah, I think that this one, oh yeah, I think
the
this one,
show could have just been slightly different in the first 4 lines of dialogue.
Yes,
like that really would have just fixed the whole thing, honestly.
totally.
But I still loved it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the
amazing.
fire. What if I told you my niece is a fire? And then like
Oh,
the thing like,
I
what
love
if I
that.
told you if I wanted this to go well? Is such a great way to like reset at a new beat that totally is
Yeah.
within the world of the show. That when we talk about exploring in a sketch, that is what we're talking about, right? Like if this is true, then what else is true? If this is something that this character is doing, like this is a moment of getting like a justification that actually explores and unlocks this whole other piece of this character in this really fun way. Also, him smoking a cigarette. I was like, I didn't know you're allowed to smoke cigarettes on TV when you're in Saturday Night Live. Like, I don't know. It was really, that was great. I thought that was really, really fun. Again, I think this one, I thought it was just so delightful and just fell a teeny bit short of like a kind of a perfect premise to me. But really, really fun. And this is the kind of thing that got me really excited. And I think if a student brought in
Me
something
too.
like this, I would be so excited to hear
Yes.
like what their other ideas are, what their mind is. Like this is the kind of thing that just really, really tickles me. All right. Anything else we want to mention about this one? Awesome. Great. Then let's go ahead to weekend update. So there were 2 desk bits. Oh, sorry. Is there anything you guys want? We're both clocked like weekend update in general being stronger this episode. Usually we just go straight to the desk bits, but is there anything you guys want to say about the
They were just more satirical and
Great.
more targeted.
Yeah, I just thought they really had teeth. A lot of
Yeah.
times it's like they're missing, or at least only some do. And it felt very cohesive as far as like tonally, everything felt really sharp.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Completely agreed. And then we went into it's funny. Then we went into the 2 kids from the back of the school bus, which felt maybe slightly less clear and sharp to me as I guess it was clear. I feel like it didn't really play a fun part of itself, I guess, was sort of my vibe. What did you guys think about this one?
It needed one more like quarter turn of the
Yeah.
idea in order to like fully coalesce into a playable game. The performance was so fun.
Yeah.
But the way that they were switching between doing like aggressive boy things and dumb boy things and talking about inflation seriously, like the switch didn't really have a point of view,
Yeah.
or it wasn't even like the point really. I kind of wanted it to be like understanding their rules for like their own behavior was harder to understand than the economics of it. Like it just could have been one little thing that could have tied it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fun performance, but not quite enough on the writing end.
Yeah. And I think this is actually, Natasha, I'm really glad you're here for this one too, just because I think that I agree, like the performance of this was fun. The specifics sort of just like maybe weren't really there for me. And I guess I wonder how you think about like for your own character writing too, like what that balance is of performance specifics, like how those things kind of like can come out, or how you think about those things.
Yeah, it's funny because at first I was like, "Oh, I think I'm really gonna like this," because the first bad boy detail of swiping, pretending the bus driver's neck folds were a credit card machine, I was like, I love how specific that is.
Yeah.
That feels like just really throughout this episode too, there were some lines like in sketches where I was like, God, that writing is so good. There's one about, I forget who, it might have even been the desk bit about like an otter clapping. It might have been the Jack Harlow desk bit. That was this month or this week, right? Jack Harlow? No, was that not this week?
I don't.
Okay, forget it.
Is that from the? Oh no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Ben doing Jack Harlow.
Was that cut?
Oh, it was cut for time. I think
it must have been cut for time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just watched everything in the YouTube playlist. Which is a shame because I thought that was the strongest character bit of all the three by far. Performance was excellent, and I thought it was like once again kind of a take with teeth, and then had a lot of really fun jokes in it. But okay, sorry. On this one, I would say if you're going, again, it's like kind of broad, right? Which is like boys will trick you by only essentially wanting to talk about nuts. But I just started to see it coming over and over again. And I'm like, you can beat it with specifics. Like if you keep giving me like credit card in the neck folds level specifics, I'm not gonna care because it's a desk bit. So the game doesn't need to be crazy meaty. But if the specifics are bananas, are bananas good, then I'm gonna be perfectly happy. And that to me, I was like, that was I'm like, put those rowdy boys in the Artemis 2 sketch. You know, I'm like, that's where that lives.
Yeah.
Even just that, a little more specificity.
Totally. Yeah, completely agreed. Yeah, awesome. I really loved the next desk bit, this expert. I think Jane Wickline has had some really fantastic performances over the past few episodes. But the specifics were so good in this one. Like, this is a great example of like, it doesn't have to be someone you love. It just has to be at night. And then like I bent over, like, then what did I have? Like even syntactically, I thought there was like, it was really beautifully written too. Like I think that another thing to call attention to, because obviously I thought this was so much fun, great character, great specifics. I also think that Michael Che as the voice of reason was so well calibrated to draw those details out too. So I think that this is a great example, not just of the character, but also of how you can use a voice of reason character, not to push too hard, but to sort of help create opportunities for your fun character to shine.
Because he started off being like, are you sure you're an expert? You're an educator? But then by the end, he's like, it's okay if you've never had sex. Like, you don't have to just be like, you're supposed to be an educator.
Yes.
Like your voice of reason character can move on to allow for more jokes.
Yes.
That's a great point. Great point, Madeline.
Yeah. I think this is the kind of thing that like is very instructive to watch, because I think so often, especially when people are starting out writing sketch, it feels like you sort of have to use your voice of reason character to be like, that's nuts. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't this. But like, this was a great way to open up so many fun details and fun specifics.
I also really liked the way in which this was topical, which I feel like people are always talking about how Gen Z isn't having any sex, and it's not like that came up this week, but it is something that is like you see a lot of articles about on the internet. So that's just a nice example of how like topical doesn't always have to be like news or something very small that happened this week. That felt nicely topical.
Yes.
Even though it's a little bit more broad.
Yeah.
Before we get leave the like Che's excellent work as the voice of reason, I also think another way to think about it is that person is still a human being, right? So if their game is the voice of reason, they're still not, they can approach it different ways. So you don't always just have to be on like stuck in a loop saying no. But yeah, it's like, what are the different ways you can point out that this person is unusual?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very true to the human experience, right? It's very rare that somebody does something unusual and you're like, that was crazy what you just did. You know, like usually it's like, oh, like, sorry, were you not comfortable with the place you were sitting before? You know, or something like that, right? Like there's any number of ways that we try to politely work around things or redirect attention. So that's always a useful thing to turn to. Yeah, awesome. Great. Any other things and thoughts from the weekend update bit? I loved this character. I thought it was such a great performance. And so much fun. Yeah, I really loved it. Okay, the next sketch was the funeral. So grandpa's funeral. Yeah. This one was a little tough to pin down in some ways. Kind of a revolving door character sketch situation. Ashley Padilla did, I think I would like to call attention to a positive of the sketch, which is Ashley Padilla as voice of reason. I thought that was very strong in this case, like as a, like, or sort of like, no, sorry, not voice of reason. Sorry, that's wrong. Ashley Padilla as a character doing exactly what has to happen for the sketch to be moving. She was not the voice of reason, but she was very clearly not the unusual character, but was still plugged into the unusual thing that was going on and was kind of piece of a pod in it without doing the same thing that the main characters were doing. I think I think it is interesting to watch for that. Like, oh, how are you doing? Like vanilla, whatever, or something. Like, are you still blah, 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 blah? Like that's interesting. And those are game moves that are different from the game moves of the characters coming in. I think that's worth clocking. But yeah, what stood out to you guys about this one? If a student brought this in, what would your notes be?
Well, I would say that like a grandpa being a sex worker is not funny. And I'm not interested in this ageist sketch. Yeah, I just think this is like it's just really not funny to me. I know that's not helpful, but the way in which it's not funny is because like it's really hard, I think, to sell to me like a person shouldn't be doing something because of their age sketch.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of the grandpa dancing on the dance floor that Perfidia, I can't
the one battle
remember
after another lady. I'm
her name.
Oh my gosh.
She won so many awards this year and I loved that movie. Oh man.
And she was on My Sweet 16 or whatever.
Yes.
Tiana Taylor.
It kind of reminded me of that, where it's like, yeah, like an old guy dancing isn't a joke. So I would just probably send this one back. If I were a teacher. I will say this was another good sub game. Like that was a nice way to have a pattern, and then like the one boy is good and the other boy is bad. They hit that 3 times. That was fun. I like that. Another good sub game. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this would be if a student brought this in. I'm like, because I'm trying to think of like how would I have 2 thoughts. One, which is like the thing I wouldn't probably. I'm like, what I wouldn't say to the student, because I don't think it would be helpful, would be like this. I'm just like not excited by this at all. It feels mostly mean.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the other way to think about it is like, it feels like it's all chainsaws that are on fire and they're constantly being dropped, or at least like I'm just so nervous this whole time because ultimately the heart of the joke is when it's so like, there's just so much about like, an old guy can't do this. And also like, isn't sex work ultimately funny? You know, or like, and then the like, again, Jeremy can't do it because he's ugly. It's just like, it just kind of feels from several generations ago where I'm like, I think we're past this. I think we're doing smarter takes, I think would be my thought.
Yeah, I agreed on all counts. And I do think that there was sort of like, aside from all of that, those bigger picture things, I do think there was also the issue of like there was like the specifics were also coming out too slow. If this were about something totally different, I would say like you just something needs to move a little faster in this sketch. It is moving very, very, very slow. I also just want to say that what Natasha said before about the chainsaws on fire is, I just want to, because for people who haven't heard that sort of term before, there's like there's an expression the teachers often use, which is like, if you are learning to juggle, you don't learn how to juggle with knives or chainsaws on fire or things like that, right? You start with things that aren't going to cause calamitous damage if you mess up the way it comes out, right? So this is like, from a writing perspective, if you're writing on something that is sort of on the border of ageism, racism, sexism, homophobia, whatever, like you're kind of juggling with chainsaws if you are trying to do that when you're kind of in a sketch 101 class. You can learn how to write about anything at all, but just as you're learning, you sort of want to be a little thoughtful about how your writing is kind of coming out, especially. Yeah, I think that this one, yeah, I also agree. I was sort of just like, kind of like most of the time. Again, I do think it's worth clocking Ashley Padilla, like the role that as a role that you can have a character play in a sketch where they aren't like doing the same thing as your characters, but they also aren't a voice of reason. I think that that's worth noting. And as also as a vehicle for moving the sketch along. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there were other things too. Oh, the other thing, I think even the top of this one bumped me a little bit. Like, wow, Grandpa seems like he was an amazing guy. I was sort of a little thrown off by like some of the phrasing of some of it too. Like, anyway, just like little things.
Yeah, like
that.
He had
why
his
do
group of
you think he's?
friends.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I guess like it just actually doesn't track. You don't know anything about Grandpa. That's part of the joke.
Right.
Mom says he's a difficult man to know. So why would you say Grandpa seems like a great guy?
Yeah, it was
Like already it's just confusing.
Yeah, I was really weirdly thrown off by that, and then didn't really get a chance to like write myself in it. Yeah, so I think that this one just was not this one was kind of a miss. I will also say that I do think ageism is one that, as you guys mentioned before, like ageism is one that does often come up in theaters like quite a lot without getting called out. So I do feel like that is one ism that people lose track of very, very, very easily. So just something to mention.
And there's like class stuff here.
Yeah,
I just
totally.
it just felt
and race stuff. It's like, well, they seem to run out of black actors to be pimps. Like, okay.
It was
right?
There was a lot going on in this whole episode. In this whole episode, as you had said earlier, Madeline, there was just like the lack of diversity in the cast felt like it really was like kind of front and center in a number of ways. But yeah, this one really was quite a miss for all three of us, it sounds like. Okay, next one, should we move on to the new teacher sketch? Okay. Yes. Oh, Madeline, you're rubbing your hands together. Go jump on in.
I mean, we all know. Okay. The Dead Poet Society teacher, but a math class is a really funny idea that I've never seen before.
I know. I was surprised because at first I was like, oh, another Dead Poet sketch. Let's see. And then I was like, wait. I actually can't believe I haven't seen this before, and it's such a great idea.
It's a clever idea. It wasn't quite played correctly. They went a couple ways within the sketch, and if they had picked one path more solidly, I think it could have been an absolute banger.
Yes.
And I think it was partially so. I think the way Colman Domingo, I think, slightly failed this one. With the voice of reason character performance. I think it needed to be just like a little bit more grounded and specific and like kind of quieter. And the other students in particular that weren't Andrew Dismukes needed to be like, if they had been playing more like, yeah, we could do that. Like they were, I'm not a good actor, so I'm not doing it. But like they were too sketchy, right? They're like, whoa, you're blowing my mind. And then needs to be, okay, mister, okay. Maybe I will stand on my desk, And then I think if they had been just like more, just almost playing it close to the movie as you can, then Andrew Dismukes could have been like, guys, it's math. That would have hit much harder every time. Like, or just let them play making up relationships between numbers in a silly way. Like where were the jokes supposed to be coming from? And I think you had to pick one avenue.
Yeah. How about you, Natasha? What were your thoughts on this one?
I think it worked for me. Yeah. I actually think this one worked for me. I thought the game was clear. I thought it was played in a fun, silly way, and I thought it heightened. I liked
Mhm.
the janitor. I liked that I liked
Yeah.
that there was still death of a student.
Yeah.
That felt like a fun nod to the movie. Yeah, so this one I mean, what Madeline like pitched as edits or like solutions, I would also enjoy, but to me, I thought this was still quite strong.
Yeah, I thought this was really strong too. I had my 2 notes for this one were I thought that the voice of reason of Andrew Moose could have been turned down a little bit more. I thought that was like that dial was like a little high to me given the way the rest of it was playing out. And then I think that the reveal was a little funky to me because I think that him pulling the banana thing really made me laugh. I really loved that. But then it took me a little while to reroute into like this is a math class. And I do think that the banana would have popped harder in a way if the math class thing had come out for maybe I might be wrong about that actually as I'm saying it, but I do think the banana kinda like stepped on some toes of the other stuff to come because in a way that was so wacky that it was I don't know, maybe I'm talking myself out of it as I'm saying it.
Do
No,
we
it was too wacky, Marina. You're right. He was being too wacky. It needed to come in and be like, "Hello, students. I'm your new teacher, and I want you to tear up your textbooks because we're not going to do things the normal way." And then I
Right,
think someone just needs to go, this is math class.
right.
Like, why that's all
Okay.
it needed to be.
You talked me back into it then. Okay, great. Yeah,
Mhm,
I think that banana was really
mhm.
fun. It was really fun, but maybe for a different slightly different sketch or a
I have
different
a
point
question
in the
for you
sketch.
guys. I forgot if this was mentioned. Do we say why he's there, where he's coming from, what kind of teacher he's been before?
I don't think so. I think it was just substitute
Yeah.
teacher. I can't remember what the
I
deal
think
was.
that would have helped too. Like, I
Yeah.
think give him a little more. So again, he's just not this like vessel of wild zany man, but like, yeah, is he an art teacher that accidentally got assigned to this class? Did he
Yes.
just finish his MFA and there's no jobs out there, for a sculptor? I think that even could have helped.
I do think that one thing I'd forgotten, I just quickly peeped my notes, and I do think one thing I found that I because Natasha, I think you're right that there was some exploring that could have been really fun for this. And I think that we ran a little bit out of steam with some of the specifics of like makeup numbers. And then like when we got to the thing with like four fingers and lilac, I was like, I wish that something else were happening right now. Like I feel a little tired of the kind of like breathy student specifics and I just want something new over here. So I do think that exploring there, I think that there was room in this sketch to trim a little bit of what was there and explore more that would have really satisfied that for me.
Like, have the administrator come in and throw him out, right? Like,
Yeah.
play the beats of the genre.
Yeah.
Uh, and see what the kids do where they're like sad that they can't do this anymore because their teacher is gone and have Andrew Dismukes be like, I can teach it to you myself from the
Yes.
textbook.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
To me, Andrew Dismukes was the only funny part. I wasn't enjoying
Oh.
the other
Oh, that's
bits.
interesting. Okay. I see. I feel different. I wanted a little less of that. That's really interesting.
And
Yeah.
I liked both. How
So
about
like
Yeah.
that?
pointing out how it's just math is like where the joke is.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah.
Figure like 8 being sexy is kind of funny, but it's
I
Oh,
not
I loved that.
okay.
super funny to me.
One beef I did have is they did a joke that they have literally done on the show before where there was like one number is the wife of another number. They had like Marcelo doing a math teacher sketch where he was like the square is the wife of the rhombus or something.
Yeah,
And I
in
was like,
the
right?
Ilium
I was like,
episode,
you
the
did that
Common
joke.
Story episode.
Anyway, anyway, that was, but I really liked the sketch. I thought it was really fun, and this one, like the other one, I thought that we discussed with the objects and stuff. I was like, oh, this is so close to being a sketch that I just like think is kind of perfect, and it just,
Adore. Yeah.
it was like just so
That was
close.
close.
It was
It's
really
close.
close. All right, and then the last sketch of the night was this Animorphs Beastamorph sketch. Stuckman morph because of a fart sneeze. Um, yeah, I think that it's really hard to like sustain like gross thing like as a thing that keeps surprising or interesting the audience. So I kind of got a little tired of this one. I think that this one it wasn't super long, but it was just very like it was very like talky like what if we do this? What if we do that? And very like planny in a way that like I think sometimes if it's like, what about we do this? What about we do that? Like often it's signaling to you that you just don't quite have enough that you're playing with. That was my thought from this one. What did you guys think for this?
I'm sure this was Sarah's idea, and it was funny to her that you would fart and sneeze and get stuck halfway, which is funny. But it's not quite a game, right? Like I was a decent 10 to 1. But it's like, could you play more with what are you heightening? Could you play more with how they get
Right.
stuck? Could you play more with other like weird ways to morph? Trying to solve it wasn't the move.
Right. They were kind of circling the premise instead of playing the premise, right? Like it was all about what had happened and not about what was not moving, not
Well, I mean, I guess she
momentum.
did try to like fart and sneeze again, but yeah, it feels like the same, right? It feels like a
Yeah.
very like 1A as opposed to B
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Absolutely.
A2, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so excited at the beginning of this when she got stuck. And then it was just it lacked surprise. There's just the way you said it. There's so much like there's not too many places you can go with bodily
Yeah.
farts and stuff.
Yeah.
I will say I really loved the moment that the who was the little pig turned into a kid, and she was, and I think Marcella pointed out that it's like your mom's like not even there anymore. There's no point going to dinner. You just eat crackers. Where I'm like, honestly, I'm like, I want that to be
Yeah.
Like
that's
I'm an
the sketch
animorph,
to
but
me.
my home life is not great.
Yeah.
It's that I'm like, that's amazing. That feels fresh to me, but that's more
Yeah.
taste, I think, than structural note. But yeah, I think for me, it's like if you can nail the freshness of an idea, you've done so much of the work at the top.
Yeah.
That I'm like, yeah, I'm just really rooting for you.
I do think that's something that, even though that is maybe a taste question too, I will say that's something that's really useful for students to hear, is that sometimes you write a sketch and you accidentally have two ideas in one. And it's not that this was like distracting from the rest of the sketch, but it's just like, oh, you could absolutely turn that into a whole sketch, and that would be really, really funny. So just know sometimes you have a throwaway line or something like that that does actually wind up being extra meaty and worth clocking as potentially a whole other sketch. So yeah,
I'm a little reluctant to say this because I don't know if it quite works, but it's almost like a shame you couldn't just do a blackout sketch on SNL. Like, oh no!
Oh, totally.
I'm stuck like this forever. But like, that would have been fine with me.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a joke where like I think it's one, or a sketch where you're like I think it's one joke. Like just tell the one joke and end it.
Yeah. It was a kind of funky one to end on. And they did do a different thing when he came back, when Colman Domingo came back. But yeah, I think I just was sort of like, I'm just ready for this one to be done at this point. And then that was the show. So there we go. And the goodbyes were very sweet. I thought that was very nice and seemed very sincere. And I like when people are sincere. Guys, thank you so much for talking about this show with me. Before we go, we're going to do plugs. I'm going to give a quick plug, then Madeline's going to give a plug, because Natasha, I want to end on you because you have something extra big and special to plug. So I'm just going to say, spread the word about the sketchbook and the Substack about the sketchbook that you are tuning into or watching right now. We're trying to spread the word so that all sketch nerds can learn about sketch and support the book as I'm writing it. That's all I got to say. Madeline, how about you? What's your plug?
I do story coaching. If you need any coaching, I'm here to help. Send me an email. Say hello.
All right. And then Natasha, take it away.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm doing my new hour called Childless Freak, April 28th, Tuesday at Joe's Pub at 9:30. You should come. If you're in New York, you should absolutely come. It's great.
I cannot express enough how wonderful and funny Natasha is. You absolutely have to see this. Like, truly go check it out. Natasha is so funny. I would see anything that you do, and this I know is just going to be so fantastic. So
That's so
please,
kind.
please, if you're in New York on April 28th, check it out. Don't overthink it. Just go ahead and get tickets now. It's going to be great. Thank you so much for talking with us. This was so much fun. I loved chatting sketch with you guys. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Marina.
All right. Talk to you all later.
Bye.
Bye.